Cruise ships are essentially floating casinos designed to separate you from your money. But every once in a while, a highly confident, incredibly stubborn passenger decides they are going to outsmart a billion-dollar maritime corporation. Today, we are looking at 12 times people tried to cheat the cruise system, and the spectacular, devastating ways it all fell apart. 1. Relying on elementary school art supplies to bypass a $200 maritime security system requires a truly breathtaking level of arrogance. Linda, a middle-aged passenger sailing on a massive luxury vessel, decided the mandatory fee for the exclusive thermal suite was an insulting cash grab. The only thing separating regular guests from the heated ceramic loungers was a specific neon orange rubber wristband. Linda attended a complimentary scrapbooking seminar on day 2 and quietly liberated some orange construction paper, a roll of thick waterproof packing tape, and industrial craft glue. Back in her cabin, she meticulously engineered a counterfeit wristband that actually looked flawless from a distance of 10 feet. For 3 consecutive days, her infiltration was a spectacular success. She glided right past the spa reception desk with the entitled, dismissive nod of a minor European royal, spending hours enjoying the eucalyptus steam rooms and infused water stations. She felt entirely untouchable, but her counterfeit masterpiece was completely untested in extreme meteorological conditions. On day 4, she decided to treat herself to an extended session in the traditional Finnish dry sauna. Now, what do you suppose happens to cheap craft adhesive and dyed paper when exposed to the intense heat and heavy sweat of a traditional dry sauna? It doesn't just quietly peel off. It slowly dissolves into a thick, highly staining paste. The bright orange dye from the construction paper mixed with her sweat and the softening glue, silently dripping down her forearm to pool heavily onto the pristine cedarwood bench beneath her. She only realized her counterfeit masterpiece was actively disintegrating when she wiped her sweating forehead, accidentally smearing a thick, sticky streak of neon orange directly across her own face. When she finally stumbled out into the frigid cooling room, her arm looked like it had been aggressively attacked by a radioactive highlighter. She spent 45 minutes at the locker room sink, desperately trying to scrub the hardened neon orange resin off her skin using the spa's own organic exfoliating sea salt. The spa manager didn't even have to ask to see her room key. She just followed the echoing sound of frantic scratching, opened the door, and silently handed Linda a $200 invoice alongside a bottle of heavy-duty nail polish remover. 2. Bypassing the heavy glass doors of a mega ship's ultra-exclusive VIP sanctuary usually requires thousands of dollars, but Martin, a 50-year-old data analyst from Toronto, decided it only required a $15 piece of electronics. He was completely obsessed with gaining access to the private top-deck cabanas without paying the massive suite upgrade fee. Before the cruise, he purchased a discreet, battery-powered RFID card cloner online. On day 2, he stalked the main buffet, looking for anyone wearing the distinct silver lanyard of a VIP guest. Finding his target standing near the carving station, Martin executed a clumsy but successful physical bump, subtly scanning the man's pocket with his hidden device. Armed with his newly cloned blank card, Martin confidently strutted to the exclusive glass VIP elevator in the atrium, flashed a smug smile at the regular passengers, and tapped the scanner. The light instantly flashed a welcoming green. The inherent problem with corporate maritime espionage is identifying your target correctly. Martin hadn't bumped into a wealthy VIP guest. He had bumped into the ship's chief environmental officer, who was doing a routine buffet inspection. The cloned master keycard didn't unlock the luxurious top deck. Instead, it instantly activated the elevator's automated waste management protocol. The doors sealed shut, the emergency maintenance lights flickered on, and the elevator aggressively plunged non-stop all the way down to deck 1. The doors finally slid open, not to a serene private pool, but directly into the ship's massive, sweltering, windowless garbage sorting facility, where 4 highly confused sanitation workers looked at Martin in his crisp floral resort wear and silently handed him a pair of heavy rubber gloves. 3. Smuggling cheap alcohol onto a luxury cruise is a common offense, but permanently dyeing your own face neon green takes a very specific kind of dedication. Chloe and Sam, a young couple trying to stretch their vacation budget, executed a classic beverage cheat with catastrophic confidence. Refusing to pay $12 for an evening cocktail, they emptied a massive family-sized bottle of mint mouthwash at home. They thoroughly sterilized the plastic container and refilled it to the brim with cheap 80-proof vodka. To perfectly maintain the optical illusion for the embarkation security scanners, Sam added exactly 4 drops of green liquid coloring. The bottle sailed through the X-ray machines in their checked luggage without a single raised eyebrow. The fatal flaw in their master plan was entirely chemical. Sam hadn't used standard water-based food coloring. He had accidentally grabbed an oil-based industrial-grade baking dye from his mother's pantry. On night 2, dressed impeccably for their romantic dinner, they poured 2 generous measures of the emerald liquid into bathroom cups and drank it straight. They walked into the elegant dining room 10 minutes later, looking like they had just aggressively kissed a radioactive frog. The oil-based dye had instantly and permanently bonded to their lips, their gums, and the entire inside of their mouths. It was a vibrant, unnatural hue that actually seemed to glow under the restaurant's candlelight. They spent the remaining 5 days of the cruise violently scrubbing their faces with coarse white washcloths, repeatedly trying to convince the deeply concerned waitstaff that they didn't have a rare maritime fungal infection. 4. According to a highly detailed Excel spreadsheet saved on his laptop, 54-year-old Arthur calculated that paying full price for drinks on a 14-night Alaskan cruise was mathematically absurd. Arthur and his golfing buddy, Ken, had booked a basic windowless interior cabin purely to save money. While browsing the online cruise planner a month before departure, they discovered a glaring corporate loophole. The ship's Eternal Vows renewal package cost a flat rate of $150, but it magically yielded an hour of premium open bar access in a private lounge, a massive custom vanilla fondant cake, priority embarkation boarding, and unlimited free laundry service. Separately, these premium perks would cost well over $600. Treating the situation like a victimless financial heist, the 2 stubbornly frugal friends registered as a couple renewing their vows, fully expecting the guest services desk to simply slip the drink vouchers and laundry tokens under their door in a discreet envelope on day 1. They completely, fundamentally underestimated the earnest, unyielding dedication of the ship's entertainment staff. The cruise director didn't just hand them a booklet of paper vouchers. He had proactively scheduled a highly public, completely mandatory vow renewal ceremony right in the center of the main atrium. To actually gain access to their coveted open bar, Arthur and Ken were informed they had to physically participate in the formal event. At 4 o'clock on a busy sea day, the 2 aggressively stubborn men found themselves standing on the illuminated glass staircase in their formal dinner suits, sweating profusely under the massive crystal chandeliers, while a live string quartet played romantic classical music and 300 curious passengers watched from the wraparound balconies. They actually had to hold hands. They stood there, gripping each other's sweaty palms, staring deeply into each other's terrified eyes, completely refusing to break character because neither man wanted to pay full price for premium scotch. They repeated heavily emotional vows about eternal maritime love, read word for word by the ship's captain himself. They survived the agonizing ordeal, proudly drank their absolute body weight in free single malt whiskey during their private reception, and stumbled back to their Deck 4 interior room, entirely convinced they had pulled off the greatest financial cheat in cruise history. But here is the devastating internal twist they never anticipated. When they opened the door to their cramped cabin, their luggage was completely gone, and the twin beds were stripped bare. The guest services manager, deeply moved by the emotional intensity of their atrium ceremony and wanting to do something truly special for the happy couple, had secretly upgraded them to the vacant honeymoon suite on Deck 12 as a surprise complimentary gift. It sounded like a massive, luxurious victory right up until they walked into the sprawling suite and discovered the room contained a single, inescapable, aggressively pink heart-shaped king bed covered in tightly folded towel swans and real rose petals. The ship was otherwise fully booked for the peak Alaskan season, meaning absolutely no rollaway cots, extra mattresses, or room changes could be provided, and their original room had already been reassigned to a guest entertainer. For the remaining 13 nights of the freezing Alaskan expedition, The two fiercely stubborn golfing buddies had to sleep shoulder to shoulder in a giant velvet heart, completely trapped in the luxurious consequences of their own scheme, all because they flat out refused to pay regular price for a few glasses of alcohol. 5. Have you ever wondered exactly how long a casino algorithm considers you an active player after a single button press? Gary, a retired supply chain manager from Wisconsin, made it his personal mission to find out. Sailing on a mega ship with a policy of complimentary drinks for active gamblers, he realized the green light on his penny slot machine stayed illuminated for precisely 3 minutes and 12 seconds after each spin. To Gary, this wasn't a game of chance, it was a highly rigid loophole. He sat down at a machine near the bar, inserted a crisp $5 bill, ordered a top-shelf $18 scotch from the waitress, and pushed the 1-cent bet button. Then he simply folded his hands and stared at the spinning digital cherries with unblinking intensity. He waited exactly 3 minutes and 11 seconds before pressing the button again. He firmly believed he had hacked the absolute core of maritime hospitality. Over 4 grueling hours, Gary successfully extracted 6 premium cocktails, moving with the physical urgency of a sedimentary rock. The flaw in his brilliant strategy was the pit boss, a highly observant man who finally walked over and printed Gary's official session receipt. With a perfectly deadpan expression, the manager handed Gary a slip of paper formally documenting that he had consumed $108 worth of premium liquor while suffering a devastating, agonizing total casino loss of exactly 17 cents. 6. Paying $30 a day for internet that barely loads a plain text email is a widely accepted maritime tragedy. But one rogue IT consultant in cabin 8114 decided to become his own telecommunications cartel. Julian boarded a 4,000-passenger megaship in Miami, with a specialized commercial-grade travel router stuffed inside his checked golf bag. His initial plan was just to bounce the single-device premium Wi-Fi package to his phone, laptop, and tablet simultaneously. But by day 2 of a transatlantic crossing, boredom and unfiltered entrepreneurial spirit took over. He realized the ship's network security was essentially a digital screen door. Julian amplified his router's signal, created a hidden password-protected network, and started sliding discreet, professionally printed business cards under his neighbor's doors on Deck 8, offering maritime cyber access for a very reasonable $10 cash a day. By Thursday afternoon, he had 22 active clients paying him daily, and he was making a genuine, untaxed profit while drinking piña coladas by the aft pool. Now, have you ever wondered why cruise lines are so militant about keeping the bridge's communication equipment completely isolated from passenger networks? It's a very good question. To maintain his 22 illicit connections through heavy steel walls, Julian had bypassed his router's factory safety protocols and cranked the broadcasting power to the absolute maximum legal limit, and then deliberately pushed it about 20% further. At exactly 4 p.m., the ship's chief security officer and the lead IT director knocked heavily on his door. They weren't standing there because they cared about the corporate revenue he was siphoning. They were there because Julian's rogue 5G Hertz signal was so aggressively powerful that it had actually started causing micro-interruptions in the captain's automated GPS positioning system. When security confiscated his equipment, they didn't just find the router. They found a hand-drawn topographical map of Deck 8 on his desk with little dollar signs over specific staterooms. He wasn't fined for stealing Wi-Fi. He was officially warned under international maritime law for accidentally attempting to electronically hijack a 140,000-ton vessel just so a guy 3 doors down could stream a football game in the bathroom. 7. Pitch black, 4:30 in the morning, and completely silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. This was the exact environment Kevin and Sarah needed to execute a highly illegal real estate acquisition. The couple desperately wanted to spend their sea day in one of the plush, double-thick padded cabanas on the exclusive, adults-only VIP sun deck, but they absolutely refused to pay the daily $90 access fee. They noticed the only thing separating the chaotic public pool area from this serene sanctuary was a 4-foot frosted glass partition. Treating their vacation like a covert military deployment, they dressed in dark athleisure wear and quietly hopped the glass barrier. They successfully claimed the largest clamshell cabana right in the center of the deck, smugly wrapped themselves in the luxurious, oversized towels, and immediately fell back into a deep, victorious sleep. Their plan was brilliant. Wake up at 8 when the area officially opened, already entrenched in the best seats on the vessel. But maritime maintenance schedules care absolutely nothing for unauthorized napping. At exactly 5:15, the deck washing crew arrived to sanitize the area. These men do not use gentle garden hoses. They use high-pressure commercial water cannons designed to violently strip dried ocean salt off teak wood. The lead maintenance worker, wearing heavy waterproof boots and noise-canceling headphones, aimed his industrial nozzle right at the center cabana to clean the cushions and pulled the trigger. Kevin and Sarah were instantly blasted out of their peaceful slumber by a direct, frigid wave of heavy-duty pressurized water straight to their faces. They couldn't scream at the crew member, they couldn't file a formal complaint with guest services, and they certainly couldn't explain why they were illegally occupying a restricted cabana in the dark. They had to frantically scramble back over the slippery frosted glass partition while completely soaked, leaving a trail of soggy, defeated footprints all the way down the stairwell. If you are enjoying these tales of absolute maritime chaos, take a quick second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And don't go anywhere, because we still have a few more stories to go. And the lengths people will go to save a tiny bit of money at sea only get more ridiculous. 8. At 3:15 in the morning, the aft adults' only hot tub on deck 15 was completely deserted, making it the absolute perfect location for an improvised, highly illegal laundromat. A passenger named Diego absolutely refused to pay the ship's €8 fee to wash a single linen shirt. In his mind, a constantly circulating body of 104-degree chlorinated water was just a massive, incredibly luxurious washing machine. Under the cover of darkness, he tossed his mesh bag full of dirty clothes directly into the bubbling water. To complete the cleansing process, he added what he firmly believed was a conservative squirt of concentrated liquid dish soap he had purchased in port. What he failed to factor into his brilliant money-saving equation was the sheer mechanical aggression of commercial aeration jets. Within exactly 4 minutes, the soap hit the main intake valves. The resulting chemical reaction didn't just aggressively clean his shirts. It created a rapidly expanding, semi-solid mountain of thick industrial foam. The dense bubbles violently overflowed the tub, consumed the surrounding loungers, and slowly advanced toward the poolside bar like a fluffy, lemon-scented glacier. Diego panicked, abandoning his clothes deep inside the foam, and fled. He genuinely thought he had gotten away with the perfect crime, right up until the next afternoon when he watched a maintenance worker silently pulling his custom monogrammed shirt out of the skimmer basket with a pool pole, while 300 highly confused passengers watched from the sun deck above. 9. If I paid for the food on the ship, it belongs to me regardless of what continent I'm currently standing on. This was the official operating philosophy of a trio of 60-something women from Sydney who viewed the complimentary breakfast buffet not as a meal, but as a tactical supply depot. Sailing on a prominent European cruise line, they were offended by the concept of buying lunch at local restaurants during shore excursions. On the morning of their stop in Naples, they initiated an extraction operation that would have impressed military logisticians. Brenda, the ringleader, brought an oversized canvas beach bag secretly lined with thermal foil. At 7 in the morning, they secured a strategic corner booth near the omelet station and began a seamless assembly line. Margaret intercepted the bacon tray with the physical blocking of a professional hockey player. Joanne stockpiled sliced provolone and cold cuts, while Brenda efficiently constructed fortified sandwiches hidden under the tablecloth, sealing them into professional-grade airtight bags. By 7:45, they had smuggled almost 4 pounds of perishable meats, condiments, and hard-boiled eggs off the vessel. They walked past the gangway security desk with the smug aura of women who had just bankrupted the cruise industry. Now, tell me honestly, would you ever voluntarily leave a sealed bag of cheap mayonnaise and cold cuts inside a dark canvas backpack while touring the ruins of Pompeii in the sweltering afternoon sun? Probably not. By 1 o'clock, the interior of Brenda's bag had become a high-temperature incubator for gastrointestinal distress. The women finally sat down on a picturesque stone wall to proudly enjoy their stolen feast. Brenda dramatically unzipped the main compartment. The resulting localized odor was so violently offensive that a nearby historical tour guide completely stopped mid-sentence and openly looked around for a ruptured sewage line. But the women were profoundly stubborn. They had carried this illicit cargo for 5 miles over cobblestones, and they were absolutely going to eat it. Joanne took one single, hesitant bite of a distinctly warm turkey sandwich coated in translucent, chemically separated mayonnaise. At that exact moment, an aggressive local stray dog leaped onto the stone wall, snatched the bag containing the remaining sandwiches directly from Brenda's hands, and bolted into the ruins. The women were furious. They complained loudly all the way back to the port about the feral wildlife ruining their vacation. But here is the internal twist they never saw coming. It wasn't until 3 o'clock the following morning, when Joanne was entirely incapacitated on the tile floor of cabin 9022, praying while her digestive system actively tried to exit her body, that they realized the truth. The stray dog hadn't robbed them. It had heroically intercepted a biological weapon and likely saved their lives. Brenda and Margaret had no choice but to call the ship's medical center, abandoning their frugal pride. When the senior doctor arrived, he took exactly one look at Joanne's pale face, sighed with the weight of a man who has seen this exact scenario 1,000 times, and asked the only question that mattered. He didn't ask about her symptoms. He just crossed his arms, leaned against the doorframe, and calmly asked, "All right, ladies, how many hours did the buffet mayonnaise sit in the backpack?" They ended up paying an $800 emergency medical bill just to treat the direct consequences of trying to save 30 euros on a local pizza. 10. There is a highly specific, very dark corner of online cruise forums that claims a broken stateroom. Air conditioner guarantees at least $200 in apology onboard credit. Marcus, a frugal software developer from Seattle, decided to actively manufacture his own refund on day 2 of a tropical sailing. He didn't want to actually sweat. He just needed the ship's digital thermostat to formally record an unlivable climate. His brilliant solution was to duct tape his wife's professional-grade travel hairdryer to the wall, pointing the nozzle straight at the cabin's environmental temperature sensor. He cranked it to maximum heat, locked cabin 7114, and smugly headed to the buffet to wait for his automatic apology letter. What Marcus didn't realize is that modern cruise ships don't just passively monitor room temperatures for guest comfort. The bridge computer continuously scans the entire vessel for sudden, highly localized thermal spikes. Within 12 minutes, the sensor wasn't just registering a broken AC, it was registering a 140-degree focused heat source. To a maritime safety computer, this looks exactly like an active, raging electrical wall fire. Marcus was standing at the buffet carving station, proudly holding a plate of roast beef, when the ship's emergency klaxons began blaring. He watched in absolute horror as a heavily geared maritime firefighting squad sprinted down the corridor, aggressively kicked open his locked door with a heavy breaching tool, and completely blanketed his luggage, his wife's expensive evening gowns, and his running hairdryer in a thick, suffocating layer of chemical fire-retardant foam. 11. Have you ever tried to mentally calculate the exact density and physical weight of a miniature glass bottle of gin? Elena, a 26-year-old medical student from Brazil, needed the automated mini-fridge in cabin 1224 completely empty so she could store the cheap local beers she had smuggled aboard. She knew these modern minibars didn't operate on the honor system. They were built on a foundation of ruthless, hypersensitive weight sensors. Elena carefully removed the $14 jar of macadamia nuts, the $9 sodas, and the $22 half bottle of champagne. Using a digital luggage scale, she weighed each item down to the exact gram. She then executed a flawless, Indiana Jones-style swap, replacing the nuts with exactly 48 grams of loose Brazilian coins, the sodas with tightly sealed Ziploc bags of bathroom tap water, and the champagne with a very specific, carefully carved Idaho potato she had discreetly stolen from the buffet. Her brilliant system worked perfectly for 3 full days, and she felt completely untouchable. But then, the ship hit a moderate, entirely unpredictable storm system off the coast of Mexico. At 2 in the morning, the massive vessel took a sharp, highly aggressive 12-degree roll to the port side. The carefully carved potato violently rolled off its designated sensor pad. The heavy pile of loose coins slid into the bags of tap water, and the fragile equilibrium of the minibar was entirely destroyed. The automated computer system instantly registered the shifting weight and mathematically determined that Elena had furiously consumed 2 sodas, an entire jar of dry roasted nuts, and a bottle of champagne in a single, chaotic 3-second gulp in the middle of the night. The system automatically billed her onboard account for $94 before she even woke up, forcing her to march down to guest services the next morning, holding a heavy Ziploc bag full of wet coins and a bruised potato, desperately trying to explain her absolute financial innocence. 12. At 6 o'clock in the morning, while a massive 5,000-passenger vessel was dropping its heavy anchors off the picturesque coast of Santorini, a 42-year-old architect from Munich named Klaus decided he was vastly superior to maritime logistics. Klaus absolutely refused to wait in the main theater with 800 other people for a standard tender boat ticket to go ashore. Sitting near the Atrium coffee bar, he carefully observed the guest services desk and noticed a specific group of passengers being handed bright, metallic red Alpha Priority circular stickers to place on their shirts, allowing them to walk straight onto the very first boat. Klaus casually walked back to his cabin, dug through his toiletries bag, and found a spool of red medical tape. Using a black permanent marker, he meticulously drew a circle, filled it in, and slapped the improvised sticky red badge onto the lapel of his crisp, white linen vacation shirt. He confidently marched past the massive line of exhausted, agitated passengers, flashed his chest at a highly stressed junior officer, and stepped onto the first tender. He took a seat by the window, adjusting his designer sunglasses, feeling entirely like a covert operative who had just successfully hacked the mainframe of the cruise industry. Now, I want you to picture the exact mental state of a man who suddenly realizes his brilliant heist has seamlessly transitioned into a hostage situation. Klaus had assumed Alpha Priority was a general early access group for VIP suite guests. In reality, it was a specialized private shore excursion specifically titled the Advanced Ironman Volcanic Caldera Trek. As the tender boat detached from the hull of the megaship, Klaus looked around and realized he was trapped in a small cabin surrounded by 40 incredibly fit, aggressive hikers wearing heavy tactical boots, moisture-wicking combat gear, and professional hydration backpacks. Klaus was wearing thin cotton trousers and a pair of expensive Italian leather loafers without socks. The devastating internal twist arrived when the tender boat didn't even head toward the main, highly populated tourist port of Santorini where everyone else was going. It bypassed the city entirely, sailing 2 miles down the coast to an isolated rocky dock at the base of the active volcano. Because the excursion was fully accounted for and the boat immediately left to fetch other passengers, Klaus had absolutely no viable escape route. He couldn't confess to forging a maritime security sticker without facing massive financial penalties and potential confinement to his cabin, so he had to fully commit to the disguise. For the next 6 agonizing hours, Klaus was forced to climb a 7-mile near-vertical trail of jagged igneous rock in the blistering Mediterranean sun, desperately trying to keep up with a group of semi-professional athletes, while his expensive leather loafers slowly disintegrated into ragged flaps of useless leather. He barely survived the ascent, completely drenched in sweat, eagerly anticipating the moment the group would finally walk down into the beautiful town of Santorini to relax. But the final consequence of his cheating was yet to come. The Alpha excursion didn't end in the city. It included a mandatory pre-arranged air-conditioned bus ride straight back to an industrial tender dock on the other side of the island. Klaus suffered through half a day of extreme cardiovascular torture, completely ruined a $600 outfit, and entirely missed seeing the actual island of Santorini, all because he couldn't handle waiting 45 minutes in a theater. I want to know in the comments, if you were forced to try one of these highly illegal schemes on your next cruise, which one would you actually risk? Let's see who the real maritime criminals are. And if you refuse to tolerate boring, sugar-coated travel videos, hit that subscribe button and like this video to keep this dry, unfiltered cruise reality check showing up in your feed.